All right, so let's get right into it. We are about to pull back the curtain on one of the most audacious financial schemes in all of history. Seriously, this is one of those stories that sounds like it's straight out of a thriller. It's about a secret money machine, a complete phantom company, and how a nation that was totally bankrupt managed to fund a military juggernaut, all in the shadows. So it all starts with a question that, on the surface, seems completely impossible to answer. How on earth does a nation that's broke, buried in debt, and legally forbidden from even having a real army suddenly build one of the most terrifying military forces the world has ever seen? Okay, before we get to the how, we really have to understand the why. Why was this so impossible? Because the situation for Germany after World War I wasn't just bad. It was, well, it was a trap, and it was designed to be escape-proof. I mean, just look at this list. You really have to get your head around how tight these restrictions were. The Treaty of Versailles, this was no mere slap on the wrist. We're talking about war reparations that were just sucking the lifeblood out of the economy. The army, capped at 100,000 men, basically a glorified police force. An air force, nope, completely forbidden. And on top of all that, they lost huge chunks of their industrial heartland. These were, quite literally, economic and military handcuffs. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, boom, the Great Depression hits. It's like those handcuffs weren't enough, so the world just threw away the key. We're talking about industrial output just falling off a cliff, down by 40%. Mass unemployment, total social despair. So building a military in this environment, it wasn't just illegal, it was completely, utterly unthinkable from an economic standpoint. So how did they pull it off? Here's the kicker. They didn't find the money. They literally invented it. And the mastermind behind this? Well, this incredible financial magic trick was a guy named Schacht. He was the head of Germany's central bank, the Reichsbank. And this quote from Schacht himself? Wow, it tells you everything you need to know about the mindset at the time. This wasn't some dry economic plan. Oh no, this was a crusade. He basically told Hitler, flat out, rearmament is the only thing that matters. Everything else, economic stability, the law, being honest about your budget, all of it had to take a backseat to this one single goal. And the weapon he chose for this crusade? It was called the Mefo bill. Now, what is that? Well, think of it like a government IOU, a promise to pay later. But, and this is the genius, deceptive part, it came with a massive twist. These IOUs weren't issued by the government. They came from a complete sham company. So they never, ever showed up on the official government budget. It was basically invisible money. Okay, so how did this whole circuit work? It's brilliant, in a terrifying way. Let's walk through it. Step 1, the government orders a bunch of military gear. Step 2, instead of paying with cash, which they don't have, this shell company, Mefo, pays the arms maker with these special IOUs, the Mefo bills. Step 3, the arms maker then takes those bills to a regular bank and cashes them in right away. So they're happy, they've got their money. Now step 4, and this is the magic trick. The bank takes the bill to the central bank, the Reichsbank, which then just prints new money to buy it from them. And just like that, poof, an enormous amount of money is created out of thin air. And the best part for them? Not a single cent appears on the public government budget. It's completely hidden. And you have to appreciate just how much of a sham this was. The company at the center of this whole thing, Mefo, it was a ghost, a total fabrication. It had a tiny bit of starting capital, sure, but it had no offices, no employees, nothing. It was literally just a name on a piece of paper, a phantom entity created for one reason and one reason only, to hide a multi-billion-dollar military buildup. And you know what? The crazy thing is, it worked. It worked spectacularly well, at least for a while. But here's the thing about financial magic tricks like this. There's always a price to pay. Always. So, just how big was this operation? Between 1934 and 1938, this little ghost company pumped out 12 times billion Reichsmarks worth of these secret bills. That's just a staggering number, especially when you remember this was an economy that was supposed to be completely on its knees. Okay, but what does 12 billion Reichsmarks even mean to us today? Let's put that in perspective. In today's money, we're talking about roughly $100 billion. $100 billion. All of it completely off the bucks, totally secret, funneled through this phantom company. It's just mind-boggling. And we're not talking about some small-time creative accounting here. No way. At its peak, this secret spending accounted for almost 9% of Germany's entire economic output, its GDP. To put that in perspective, at times, Mefo bills were funding up to half of the whole rearmament program. This wasn't just part of the story, it was the secret engine driving the entire war machine into existence. But of course, there was a catch. There's always a catch. You can't just keep printing money out of thin air with no consequences. This whole thing, it was a ticking time bomb. A colossal hidden debt was building up in the shadows. See, every single one of these bills had a 5-year maturity. That means after 5 years, the government was legally on the hook to pay them back with real money. The whole thing was a financial house of cards, and the clock was ticking down fast. And by 1938, that 5-year fuse was just about burned to the end. The miracle was about to become a catastrophe. You can see how quickly it all unraveled right here. In 1937, Schacht himself, the guy who invented the system, is screaming from the rooftops, warning that the whole thing is about to explode from inflation. By early 1938, they have to stop issuing new Mefo bills altogether. Why? Because they're getting crushed by the pressure to pay back the old ones coming due. They try to switch to regular, above-board government borrowing, but a bond issue completely fails. The market's tapped out. So what happens? In June of 1939, they just drop the act. They change the law and basically give the central bank a blank check. Unlimited power to just print money to fund the war directly. And this, right here, is the absolute key point. The Mefo scheme didn't just allow for rearmament. Its collapse forced their hand. It made open war preparations an economic necessity. They were backed into a corner. The choice was either total financial collapse or pivot the entire economy to a war footing to deal with this mountain of hidden debt. They were past the point of no return. So you might be sitting there thinking, okay, that's a wild story from the past, but the fundamental idea behind Mefo bills, the whole concept of hiding massive debts and risks off the books, in the shadows, oh, that is very, very much alive and well in the world of modern finance. The fancy term for it is creative accounting. And really, it's just the art of using complicated, purpose-built financial structures to make huge debts and risky obligations just vanish from the official books. And when you put them side by side, the parallels are they're stunning. Back then, the instrument was the Mefo bill. Today, you've got things like structured investment vehicles, or SIVs. The mechanism then was a shell company, Mefo. Today, we call them off-balance sheet conduits. The backstop then was a direct government guarantee. Today, it's often the implicit promise of a government bailout. You see, the names have gotten more sophisticated, but the game is exactly the same. Hide the debt, hide the risk. So when it all comes down to it, what were Mefo bills? They were a bridge built in the dark. They were a temporary, totally secret credit machine designed to do one thing: buy time. They masterfully turned invisible, off-the-books promises into very real tanks, planes, and warships, giving the regime the crucial years it needed to rearm, all while the rest of the world was looking the other way. It was, without a doubt, a work of financial genius. Twisted genius, but genius nonetheless. But it leaves us with a really chilling question to think about. When numbers on a ledger stop being just numbers and instead become weapons, when financial tricks are used to fuel a political machine, who ultimately pays the price for that deception?